I was seasoning a cast-iron skillet when she walked in, purse still on her shoulder, a spark in her eyes that looked less like joy and more like challenge. "You're sleeping in the garage tonight," she said, like she was telling me the trash schedule. "My real boyfriend is coming over." She wasn't joking. She loosened her scarf, kicked off her shoes, and opened the fridge like a queen inspecting her pantry. I stared at the skillet, then the clock, then the woman I'd married. We'd argued before, sure, about laundry, about my habit of labeling everything in the pantry, but this? It didn't feel like a fight. It felt like a verdict. My first instinct was to laugh, which would have been a mistake. My second was to shout, which would have been worse. Instead, I turned off the stove and slid the pan aside. "Okay," I said. She blinked, waiting for theatrics that never came. "Okay?" she repeated. I picked up my keys from the hook by the door. "I'm going to give you the house tonight. You can have your evening." My voice felt like it belonged to someone who had practiced this line for years. "Lock up when he leaves." Confusion flickered across her face, quickly replaced by a smirk that told me she mistook calm for surrender. "Don't forget the garage opener," she said. "You can use the old camping cot." I nodded. "You won't need to worry about me." I walked past the row of framed photos, wedding, New Year's, road trips, the curated gallery of a life we had arranged like a stage set. My shoes made small sounds on the wood floor. Outside, the air tasted like rain. I didn't slam the door. I didn't take a final look through the window. I got into the truck, turned the key, and drove to a hotel near the interstate, the kind with a cheerful clerk and a breakfast buffet where bananas pretend to be a full meal. At the desk, I gave my ID and a credit card I hadn't used in a long time. "Late night?" the clerk asked casually. "Something like that," I said, and took the key card, a map to the ice machine, and a tiny pen that would end up in my glove compartment for years. The room was beige and forgiving, a hum from the air conditioner, a TV remote wrapped in plastic like a hospital instrument, a microwave with buttons in a language only microwaves speak. I set my phone on the desk, face down, and opened the notebook I carry everywhere. Habit, a quiet ritual. When things went sideways, writing turned panic into bullet points. I listed 5 tasks. 1. Change passwords. 2. Call attorney in the morning. 3. Move valuables to storage. 4. Freeze joint card. 5. Breathe. That last one always looks silly until you realize you've been holding your chest so tight you forgot it could rise and fall without permission. I had met her 3 years earlier at a charity 5K I'd sponsored through my consulting firm. She ran fast and talked faster. I liked the way she treated strangers like friends and friends like family. My work, in contrast, was quiet. Risk audits, security reviews, background checks for companies that wanted to avoid scandal. I rarely mentioned the last part. People hear background checks and picture trench coats and alleyways. The truth is spreadsheets and diligence. But the results can change lives. I had learned early that discretion keeps you safe. It also keeps you lonely if you're not careful. We built a home in a leafy neighborhood, the kind where neighbors trade recipes and lawn mowers. We hosted dinners where she charmed people while I kept glasses full and conversation moving. We picked out furniture that promised permanence. We discussed children in the tentative, hopeful way of people locating the horizon. There had been warning signs, sure, the late nights at work, the new passwords on her laptop, the way she snapped when I asked about plans. But marriage makes you a believer in explanations. You swallow doubt like medicine and call it faith. Sitting on the hotel bed, I watched headlights slide across the curtains and replayed the scene over and over. Not once did she ask if I was okay. Not once did she consider what it means to tell a spouse to sleep in the garage, as if vows were lawn equipment you pushed to the side. The absence of care was the loudest part. I showered the road off, lay down on top of the covers, and set my phone to Do Not Disturb. If a building fell, the world would manage without me until morning. I fell asleep to the sound of an ice machine dumping another tray. At 3 a.m., the quiet detonated. My phone vibrated across the desk like a trapped insect. Then again. And again. By the 10th buzz, I knew it wasn't a spam call. I flipped the phone and squinted at the screen. 47 missed calls, all from her. A text popped up. Frantic punctuation. Bright as a flare. Please come back. He saw your photo and Googled your name and left. Who the hell are you? I sat there in the blue glow, reading the sentence like a puzzle with bigger pieces behind it. She had ordered me to the garage like a handyman, and now she was asking for rescue because a man she called real had decided I was too much gravity for his evening. The irony wasn't lost on me. Irony rarely is at 3 a.m. I didn't reply. Instead, I turned on the desk lamp and opened my laptop. I logged into the secure portal for my firm, a platform I designed after seeing too many clients lock their lives into weak passwords and vague promises. I reviewed my own profile the way I would for a stranger. Public, private, news mentions, law journal quotes, old cases where I testified as a consultant in corporate fraud investigations. Nothing flashy, nothing sensational, but enough to make a person with a messy history think twice. I'm not a celebrity or a secret agent. I'm the person companies call when they want to make sure the future doesn't carry a hidden fuse. Another text? Are you awake? Please answer. He said you're dangerous, are you? I typed 3 words and deleted them. I typed 7 different replies and deleted those too. Silence can be a mirror. It reflects the speaker back to themselves until they can't stand the view. Instead, I called the hotel front desk and added another night. I sent a note to my attorney, subject line, time-sensitive personal matter, asking for a morning call. I turned to the window and watched the empty highway. Somewhere trucks were hauling bread and medicine, proof that the world keeps promises even when people don't. At dawn, I grabbed coffee from the lobby and drove to a storage facility on the other side of town. The manager there knows me by first name and invoice number. I rented a climate-controlled unit and began moving the few things that held my story without hers. Files, hard drives, photo albums from before we met, my grandfather's watch wrapped in a t-shirt, the flag they folded at my dad's memorial. On the way back, I stopped by the bank and froze the joint credit card as politely as one orders breakfast. The banker, who has seen every chapter humans write with money, nodded without surprise. My attorney called at 9, voice calm, thorough. You did the right thing by leaving, she said. No confrontation, no accusation. You're safe and so is your record. We discussed next steps like whether practical, predictable, survivable. Evidence of infidelity would help in negotiations, so would the texts. She advised me to keep everything polite and in writing. I took notes. By midday, the texts had shifted tone, from pleading to accusatory to nostalgic. She reminded me of the time we drove all night to see a meteor shower. She offered to explain. She said we could move past this. She said her boyfriend had misunderstood the Google results. She said I made people nervous because I look like a person who knows things. That part made me laugh, not because it was wrong, but because it was the first honest sentence she'd sent. I answered with a single message. I'll be in touch through counsel. Please respect my space. 3 dots blinked, then disappeared. Blinked again. Disappeared. Finally. You're making a mistake. I slipped the phone into my pocket and headed to our house. The drive felt shorter than usual, as if the road itself had decided to do me a favor. The neighborhood looked the same. Sprinklers ticking, a kid wobbling on a new bike, the mail carrier practicing the art of balancing bills and promises. I parked at the curb and sat for a moment. A lawn service mower buzzed nearby like a giant bee. I walked to the door with a body camera clipped discreetly inside my shirt, recording as a witness that never sleeps. When she opened the door, mascara smudged and hair in a messy knot, I saw fear and defiance wrestling behind her eyes. For a second, I remembered the woman who'd sung loudly at stoplights and insisted that roadside peaches taste better because the sun finds them first. Then I remembered the garage. We need to talk, she said. Yes, I agreed, but not the way you think. I stepped inside, felt the familiar cool of tile under my shoes, smelled the candle she always lit after cooking. In the living room, a glass on the coffee table held lipstick like a question mark. The place looked staged again, only now I could see the strings holding up the scenery. I don't know what he found, she began, hands fluttering. I swear I didn't. This isn't about him, I said gently. It's about us and what we choose next. What are you going to do? She asked, voice small. Something you didn't offer me, I said. I'm going to be respectful. She flinched at that word more than at any accusation. Respect has edges you don't feel until you push against them. We sat at opposite ends of the couch. I explained that I would stay at the hotel for now, that my lawyer would reach out, that we could separate with grace and honesty. I told her I wouldn't drag her name through the mud. I also told her that the garage comment, the order, the entire plan, that had ended whatever we were trying to save. Her eyes filled. "You're really done?" "I was done the moment you asked me to sleep next to the lawnmower," I said. "I just hadn't said it out loud yet." She leaned back, looking up at the ceiling like it might offer captions for real life. "Who are you?" she whispered. The clock ticked. Outside, a dog barked twice and gave up. I let the question hang, not as a taunt, but as a pause for both of us. The truth would arrive soon enough. For now, my calm was answer enough. I stood, picked up the small overnight bag I'd left by the door, and nodded. "You'll hear from counsel tomorrow." She didn't stop me. She didn't apologize. She just watched, as if I were a puzzle she had tried to solve using the wrong rules. Back at the hotel, I slipped the keycard into the slot and listened to the door click open. It was the softest sound, yet it felt like a gate swinging wide. I sat at the desk, opened my notebook, and wrote a new list. 1. Call accountant. 2. Schedule storage pickup for furniture I own. 3. Talk to HR about updated emergency contact. 4. Book a week at the coast. 5. Begin again. The sun lowered outside the window, coloring the parking lot gold. I turned off my phone and let the room go quiet. Revenge, I decided, isn't fire or spectacle. It's order. It's living well. On your terms. With receipts filed and doors closed softly behind you. Tomorrow, I'd tell her exactly who I was and why her boyfriend had sprinted into the night at the sight of my name. But tonight I slept. The next morning began with sunlight and paperwork, always the truest signs that something real had ended. I'd slept surprisingly well, the kind of rest that comes after finally deciding not to argue with chaos anymore. My phone sat silent on the nightstand, its screen free of her name. I liked it that way. I met my attorney in her office downtown. She had a calm, unshakable confidence I'd always admired, the kind of woman who could negotiate a storm into a drizzle. I laid out the facts, handed her my notes, and she nodded through every line. "You handled this perfectly," she said. "No confrontation. No shouting. You have proof, and you stayed professional." Professional. That word used to describe my work. Now it described my heartbreak. She explained the next steps. Document everything. Communicate only through legal channels and avoid any unnecessary contact. Keep your tone measured, she added. That's how you win, not by yelling, but by staying steady. I left her office feeling lighter, not happy, not triumphant, just free. It's strange how calm can feel like revenge when you've been living in confusion. Back at the hotel, I opened my laptop and began typing an email to one of my old colleagues, a friend who ran a small investigations firm. We'd traded favors in the past, but I wasn't calling for vengeance. I wanted understanding. "Run a quick background check on someone," I wrote. "Her new boyfriend. I don't need dirt, just facts." He called me within an hour, voice full of curiosity. "That's a bold move," he said. "You're not planning anything reckless, are you?" "Just clarity," I told him. By the evening he sent me a short report. Her real boyfriend had a different name than the one she'd told me. His online history was spotty, suspiciously so. He'd changed addresses 3 times in 2 years, had a business license revoked, and had been listed in a civil lawsuit involving fraud. Nothing violent, but enough to make someone nervous once they Googled my background and saw I was a security consultant who'd testified in corporate fraud cases. So that was it. He wasn't afraid of me personally. He was afraid of exposure. He thought he'd found an easy situation. When he realized who I was, he bolted. My wife's little act of defiance had collided with someone else's hidden secrets, and I didn't have to lift a finger. The irony made me smile for the first time in days. Life, when left alone, sometimes balances its own scales. That night, she texted again. "Please, I need to talk. He's gone. I made a mistake." I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "I hope you find what you're looking for." She called twice, left voicemails that swung from anger to pleading, and then fell silent. I didn't respond. There's a kind of dignity in silence that no argument can match. Over the next week, I focused on my work. My clients didn't know what had happened, and I preferred it that way. Routine became my anchor, meetings, reports, gym, sleep. Every hour spent on something practical felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. But one evening, as I was walking back from the hotel lobby with a cup of coffee, I noticed a familiar car in the parking lot, hers. She was sitting in the driver's seat, staring straight ahead. I stopped, heart steady, not surprised. I walked over and knocked on the window once, calm but firm. She jumped, rolled it down a few inches. "You blocked me," she said. "I did. I just wanted to talk." "You've said that before." Tears pooled in her eyes. "I don't even know why I did it," she whispered. "It wasn't about him. I think I wanted attention, or maybe I wanted to test you. I thought you'd fight for me." I let out a slow breath. "You didn't want a partner. You wanted a villain." She shook her head. "I don't want to lose you." "You already did." For a moment, neither of us moved. She looked at me like I was a stranger who'd stolen her husband's face. Finally, she nodded, wiped her tears, and drove away. I watched her taillights fade into traffic, a little red ghost disappearing around the corner. The next morning, I checked out of the hotel and rented a small apartment closer to my office. It wasn't much: bare walls, a single couch, one plant that refused to die. But it was mine. No drama, no staged smiles, no half-truths hiding under the dinner table, just quiet. Weeks passed. My lawyer sent updates, papers filed, assets divided, signatures exchanged. Each step brought another breath of air. By the time everything was finalized, I didn't feel broken. I felt rebuilt. A mutual friend texted me months later. "She's moving away. New job, new city." I wished her well, silently. No bitterness, no triumph, just closure. That night I went for a long drive along the coast. The sun dipped into the ocean, the sky painted with that soft, golden light that makes even mistakes look beautiful from a distance. I rolled down the window and let the wind rush in, clean and cool. I realized then that revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes the sweetest payback is peace, living well, moving on, and letting those who betrayed you live with their choices. I didn't need her to see that I was doing fine. I just needed to know it for myself. And I did. Months passed quietly, the kind of calm that feels like a new language you learn after chaos. I had grown used to the rhythm of my own life again. Coffee at dawn, long walks, work that challenged me but didn't drain me. Peace wasn't loud, but it was steady. Every once in a while, her name would flicker across my thoughts, not with pain anymore, just memory. There was no anger left, no heat. I'd realized that when trust shatters, love doesn't die instantly. It fades like music when you step out of the room. One day you notice it's gone, and silence feels right. One evening I stopped by a local cafe I'd never tried before. It was cozy, brick walls, warm lights, the smell of cinnamon and espresso. I ordered a black coffee and sat by the window, scrolling through my emails. That's when a woman at the next table asked if she could borrow my charger. She laughed at her dying phone, and the sound was real, not rehearsed, not performative. We talked a little. Her name was Emily, a travel photographer who just moved into town. She had that rare calm energy, someone who didn't need to fill silence to feel comfortable. I told her what I did for work, and she said, "So you basically help people see the truth before it hurts them?" I smiled. Something like that. We didn't exchange numbers that night, but I saw her again a few days later. Same cafe, same table, like the world was nudging me toward something new. We talked about places we'd been, things we'd learned the hard way, and how starting over doesn't mean forgetting. It means carrying lessons instead of scars. Meanwhile, I heard bits and pieces about my ex-wife through mutual circles. She had moved across the country, started over, maybe even found someone new. I didn't wish her harm. In fact, I hoped she found whatever it was she'd been searching for the night she told me to sleep in the garage. People chase illusions when they don't understand peace. One night, months later, an email landed in my inbox. It was from her. The subject line simply said, "Thank you." The message was short. "I finally understand what you meant about respect. I've spent months wishing I'd handled things differently. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you're happy. You deserve that." I read it twice, then hit archive. Some messages don't need replies, just quiet acceptance that growth happened, even apart. Life went on, work flourished, I traveled more, and Emily and I kept crossing paths until one day it didn't feel like coincidence anymore. She never asked for details about my past, and I never compared her to ghosts. We just built something honest, one laugh, one story at a time. Looking back that night, the garage, the keys, the drive to the hotel, it used to feel like the end of everything. But now I see it was a doorway. Sometimes the most painful endings are disguised as the cleanest beginnings. People always think revenge means payback, but real revenge is rebuilding a life so peaceful that the people who wronged you can't recognize the person they hurt. You become unshakable, untouchable, not out of pride but out of growth. One evening, I drove past the old neighborhood. The house still stood, lights glowing in the windows. I didn't stop. I just smiled, turned up the radio, and kept driving toward the city skyline where everything new waited. The wind through the open window felt different that night. Freer, lighter. For the first time, I didn't feel like the man who'd been betrayed. I felt like the man who'd finally learned what real peace costs and why it's worth every bit of it. And somewhere between the hum of the tires and the city lights, I realized that closure doesn't come from answers. It comes from deciding that the story doesn't need another page. I was finally done reading.